You're listening to Wake Up Australia on 2GB, thanks to Care Alert, the smart dialer for under $300 and no monitoring fees ever.
Brian Wilshire filling in for Andrew Moore this week on Wake Up Australia. 131873 is our number, 131873, if you have something to share with the world. G'day, Gerard.
Oh, g'day, Brian. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit. I heard you talking about how we stopped the boats, and your previous caller talked about an invasion.
Yes.
And I feel like for most Australians, there's sort of a false dichotomy. Like, one option is we stop the boats and we treat asylum seekers or refugees or boat people in appalling conditions, or the other is we open up the borders. And I feel like most of the Australian population want something in between.
Don't you think they want the borders closed?
They want our borders protected at the cost of treating people in inhumane conditions. I think that's the thing, that most Australians want our borders closed, but we don't believe we have to treat people like animals. So, and what we're presented with one side of the government is, we're under Labor, let's just fling the doors open.
Mm-hmm.
And with this current mob, well, let's shut the gates, and if they try and get here, we lock them up and treat them in subhuman conditions, plus 40-degree temps, no mental stimulation, no idea of what they're going to do.
Mind you, our soldiers, when they're in Afghanistan, lived under much tougher conditions.
It's nothing to do with them. This is about how we can be a country that protects its borders and also at the same time treat people with a bit of dignity. And I believe we can do that.
Well, you got to be sorry for the women and the children. You don't want to send them off to the gulags, but they make a calculated attempt with the money that's gathered by relatives to send the youngest members out here.
This is about what type of country are we? Are we a country that, yes, we understand that our sovereignty is very important, but yes, we also, as a people, even in our prisons, for murderers in our prisons, for rapists in our prisons, there is at least a modicum of sense of what type of conditions they should be in.
Well, that's because we've had decades of prisoner liberation ever since Tony Vincent said that digging tunnels was a good thing for prisoners to do because it kept them busy.
But it's also because we understand that they're human beings, and regardless of what they've done, we don't string them up by their necks. We don't put them on the rack anymore. Why don't we have the rack anymore? Because at some point we have to go, we're a civilised society as well as a society that has to have protection of our borders, you know?
Well, it's a good question. How civilised are we supposed to be? Should we let all the prisoners go on the grounds that we shouldn't judge anybody? No, we don't go that far.
I think the question is, what do we feel like? The reason there is so much, you understand that there is a groundswell of opposition towards the approach that Scott Morrison has taken, and it's not because he has stopped the boats.
Well, I read about that in the Herald, but I'd say the groundswell of opinion is to get tougher.
To treat people worse?
Yep, to treat them worse, to deter them. They don't have to get tougher because they've stopped the boats.
With the middle of Australia, there's people on the left who think we should swing them open. There's people on the far right who say get tougher, but the middle of Australia, I think you will find, want two things, and they're very simple and they're not incompatible. It is toughen borders, but still show these people who we don't know their circumstances. You know, we understand why they may have got on a boat, but there's still women and children involved.
Well, we know they jumped the queue ahead of people languishing in places like Africa.
So they then deserve to be put in subhuman conditions.
Well,
that's what we decide.
What is?
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that both are achievable? Do you think we can have very tough borders and have detention centres which just have a little bit of consideration?
Well, they have air conditioning, they have phones, they're given even free dental that our pensioners don't get, free medical and dental.
I'd be very surprised if they had air conditioning.
Yes, they have air conditioning.
Have you been there?
No, I've read the articles about it, like we all have.
The thing is that nobody's been in there. There's no transparency, and that's all Australians want as well.
Well, I think the Red Cross and quite a few people, including the Greens, have been in to have a look.
Well,
Amnesty International keeps an eye on it.
Trust the Greens as far as you would throw them.
No.
But I just think there's a middle ground, and I think we can move towards that. And, yeah, I think we've got to remember how to protect this country, but also how to protect the type of society we want to be. That's all.
Okay, Gerard.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for calling. It's 21.5 to 5. What do you reckon? What do people want? Is there a middle ground? Do we open the borders? Do we get tough? I mean, the government is tough enough. They've stopped the boats already. The idea that they might end up in Malaysia or now even Cambodia is sufficient to deter them. So we don't have to turn off the air conditioners, take back the mobile phones. Of course, there was a sting in the tail of the mobile phone thing. We could tap their phones, and we could tell where they were calling, which would give us some idea of where they came from when they phoned their relos. And that way you could tell who was telling the truth about their home country and who wasn't. So it might have been a clever idea and worth the investment to give them the mobile phones and the PlayStations and whatever else. The difficult thing is being tough on the kids, because you shouldn't be tough on the kids. It's not their fault. The women don't have a say in it either. I think the government has been tough enough, because if the boats are down to zero, well, you can't do any better than that. The question is what to do with the people who've already come. You tell us. 131873 is the number.
Alan Jones.
Well, it will now be a second Senate election in Western Australia. This entire fiasco is a disgrace.
Jones.
The new election will cost taxpayers at least $11 million. It'll create political uncertainty and disruption, could possibly undermine Tony Abbott's capacity to implement his government mandate by getting the numbers he needs in the Senate come July 1.
Jones.
The Electoral Commissioner, Ed Killerstein, should resign today.
Alan Jones, 5:30 till 9 on 2GB, the Power Station.